Too ordinary. Those two words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Gregory Harlow stood at the head of the conference table, his perfectly pressed suit catching the afternoon light as he dismissed 7 years of my work with a casual wave of his hand. My presentation materials sat untouched in front of the investors. My fingers trembled slightly as I gripped the edge of the table, fighting to keep my expression neutral. Renee's reliable, of course, Gregory continued, flashing that practiced smile toward the board members. But leadership requires presence, vision. She's steady, which we appreciate, but steady doesn't inspire change. Steady, ordinary, words meant to keep me small. The room felt suffocating. 6 pairs of eyes avoided mine, studying their papers instead. Margaret Chun from accounting cleared her throat uncomfortably. Vincent Torres, the CFO I'd helped hire, suddenly found his phone fascinating. Nobody would meet my gaze. I forced myself to breathe, to smile, to nod as if his words hadn't just shattered something inside me. But in that moment, sitting in the glass-walled conference room of the company I'd helped build, I made a silent promise. If Gregory Harlow saw ordinary, then ordinary would become the very thing that destroyed him. I didn't argue. Years of survival had taught me when to stay silent. My mother's voice echoed in my head, "Pick your battles, Renee. Save your energy for wars you can win." So I smiled. The same controlled, practiced expression I'd perfected through countless dismissals and overlooked promotions. Inside, though, something fundamental had shifted. The anger burning through my chest felt different this time. Clearer, purposeful. Gregory walked around the table, stopping beside my chair. He placed his hand on my shoulder like a teacher consoling a disappointed student. The gesture made my skin crawl. "Don't take it personally," he said, his voice dripping with false warmth. "You're invaluable where you are, Renee. The operations don't run without you. Why risk that for something uncertain?" My throat felt tight, but I managed to speak. "Of course, Gregory. I understand completely." The lie tasted bitter. I gathered my presentation materials with steady hands, refusing to let them see how badly I wanted to scream. As I walked toward the door, I caught my reflection in the glass wall. Professional, composed, invisible. Behind me, Gregory's voice resumed, pitching a strategic initiative I'd developed 3 months ago. He presented it as his own vision, and nobody questioned him. They never did. "My name is Renee Callahan, and I spent 7 years making Gregory Harlow look brilliant. I started at Harlow Dynamics fresh out of business school, ambitious and naive enough to believe hard work guaranteed recognition. Gregory hired me as a junior operations analyst, promising mentorship and growth. Back then, the company had 30 employees and dreams of disrupting the logistics software industry. "You're sharp," he'd said during my interview. Leaning forward with that magnetic intensity he wielded so effectively. "I can see you becoming essential here. Essential, not equal." The distinction should have warned me. I worked 80-hour weeks, streamlined processes nobody else understood, and fixed crises before they reached Gregory's desk. When our biggest client threatened to leave, I flew to Phoenix and spent 3 days rebuilding the relationship. When our software launch nearly failed, I coordinated a team of developers through 72 sleepless hours to meet the deadline. Gregory called me his secret weapon during company celebrations. But when promotion discussions happened, I wasn't in the room. When investors visited, I prepared briefings others presented. When media covered our success, Gregory stood alone in photographs. I was the engine invisible beneath the hood. In the early days, Gregory played mentor convincingly. We'd meet for late-night planning sessions, fueled by terrible coffee and shared ambition. He spoke about building something meaningful, a company that valued innovation over ego. "We're family here," he'd say, spreading paperwork across the conference table at midnight. "Family doesn't need fancy titles. We just need trust." I believed him. God, I actually believed him. He'd ask my opinion on major decisions, nodding thoughtfully as I outlined strategies. He'd introduce me to investors as the brains behind our operations. He made me feel seen, valued, part of something bigger. But manipulation always wears sincerity first. Looking back, I recognized the pattern. He sought my expertise when problems arose, But when solutions succeeded, the credit vanished into his narrative. My detailed analyses became his instincts. My risk assessments transformed into his vision. He taught me everything about logistics optimization and nothing about protecting myself. The coffee cooled. The late nights continued. And slowly, imperceptibly, I became a tool instead of a colleague. A resource to extract value from, not a partner to elevate. By the time I noticed, the cage had already locked. Everything changed when Harlow Dynamics secured major venture funding. The company Gregory and I had built together suddenly belonged to shareholders and board expectations. He changed overnight. The man who'd valued collaboration started making unilateral decisions. The mentor who'd encouraged my input began cutting me off mid-sentence during meetings. The partner who'd promised growth started introducing new executives from outside, filling senior positions with people who had connections but lacked understanding of our operations. We need experienced leadership, he explained when I questioned the hiring spree. People who've scaled companies before. I've been here from the beginning, I reminded him. I know this company inside and out. His smile didn't reach his eyes. And you're excellent at execution, Renee. But vision requires a different skill set. The pronouns shifted too. We're launching this initiative became, I'm launching this initiative. Team victories transformed into Gregory's triumphs. During board presentations, my projects appeared on slides with his name attached. The first time I corrected the record, pointing out that I developed the client retention strategy he was presenting, Gregory's expression remained pleasant. But his voice carried an edge. Details aren't leadership, Renee. Leadership is about the big picture. I learned to stay silent after that. Gregory possessed a gift for making subordination feel like honor. He'd mastered the language of manipulation, wrapping control in flattery. You're too important in operations, he'd say when I mentioned interest in strategic roles. Moving you would destabilize everything we've built. Or, people like you are the real heroes, Renee. Steady, reliable people who keep companies alive while others chase glory. It sounded noble. It wasn't. Every compliment contained a cage. Every expression of appreciation reinforced my place beneath him. He praised my consistency while ensuring I never had opportunities to demonstrate anything else. During company gatherings, he'd toast to the unsung heroes behind our success, gesturing vaguely toward the operations team while investors focused solely on him. The message was clear. Appreciate your role, but don't aspire beyond it. I wore that leash for years, telling myself patience would be rewarded. That loyalty mattered. That eventually, he'd recognize my contributions and make space for me to lead. But Gregory didn't keep talented people close to eventually promote them. He kept them close to ensure they remained useful and contained. I was his safety net, not his successor. Then came the meeting that shattered my illusions completely. I'd spent 3 weeks preparing a proposal for expanding our services into supply chain analytics. The research was solid, the financial projections conservative, the implementation timeline realistic. This was my chance to demonstrate strategic thinking, to prove I belonged in leadership discussions. I presented confidently despite my nervousness. The data supported every recommendation. Several board members nodded along, particularly Priya Desai, who asked intelligent follow-up questions. Then Gregory leaned back, that familiar smile playing across his face, the smile that preceded destruction. It's thorough work, he acknowledged. But let's be honest, this isn't the kind of bold thinking that drives real growth. Heat crept up my neck as he continued. Renee's reliable, competent, but we need leaders with presence, vision. She's steady, which has value, but steady doesn't capture market share. The word hung in the air. Ordinary. Every face around that table communicated the same message. Don't make this worse. Don't react. Accept your place. So I did what survival required. I nodded, gathered my materials, and walked out with my dignity barely intact. But that quiet exit wasn't surrender. It was a declaration of war. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, fighting back tears that would accomplish nothing. The parking garage felt like a tomb, silent except for my ragged breathing. 7 years. 7 years of sacrifice, of missed family dinners and abandoned hobbies, and relationships that withered from neglect. 7 years of believing dedication mattered, all dismissed with one word: ordinary. That night, I wrote a resignation letter. 3 sentences, professional and final. I printed it on expensive paper, signed it carefully, and placed it in an envelope. The next morning, Gregory summoned me to his office. Somehow he'd already heard. "You're overreacting," he said, concern painted across features that had become hatefully familiar. "One disappointing meeting isn't worth throwing away your career here." I met his eyes directly for perhaps the first time in months. "You called me ordinary in front of the board, Gregory. After 7 years of making you look brilliant." "I was managing expectations," he countered smoothly. "You're not ready for executive leadership." "That's not personal, it's practical. You were keeping me contained." My voice remained steady, because competent people are harder to replace than titled ones. His expression shifted, the mask slipping. "Don't be dramatic, Renee. Where else would you go?" I placed the envelope on his desk. "I guess we'll both find out." Walking out of Harlow Dynamics felt both liberating and terrifying. Freedom tastes strange when you've been captive so long. I had $8,000 in savings. No job prospects. No plan beyond leaving. Just exhaustion, anger, and a dangerous amount of clarity. For 3 days, I barely moved from my apartment. I ate cereal for every meal, ignored concerned calls from former colleagues, and stared at my ceiling wondering if I'd made a catastrophic mistake. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. Something Gregory had tried to extinguish but never quite managed. Ambition. He'd built an empire on my quiet competence, my willingness to work behind the scenes while he collected accolades. If I could make his company successful, what could I build for myself? The question consumed me. I started sketching ideas on whatever paper I could find. Sticky notes covered my kitchen table, outlining problems Harlow Dynamics ignored. Client complaints Gregory dismissed. Market gaps his ego prevented him from seeing. He'd taught me logistics optimization, but I'd learned something more valuable through watching his mistakes. I'd learned exactly how not to lead. The concept crystallized over bad coffee at 2 in the morning. A consulting firm focused on helping mid-sized companies optimize their supply chains without the corporate arrogance that plagued established players. Transparent pricing, ethical practices, actual partnership instead of extracting maximum value from desperate clients. Everything Gregory's company pretended to be but wasn't. I named it Harbor Point Consulting, a safe port for businesses tired of being exploited by firms like Harlow Dynamics. The name felt right. Solid. Ordinary even. Perfect. I registered the business online, designed a basic website using a free template, and wrote a mission statement that made vulnerability sound like strength. Exceptional results through genuine partnership. No egos. No games. Just solutions. My savings shrank with each necessary expense. Business registration. Basic insurance. A cheap office suite that smelled like old carpet and broken dreams. But it was mine. Entirely, completely mine. No Gregory to dismiss my ideas. No board meetings where I sat silent. No more watching credit for my work vanish into someone else's narrative. I sent my first client proposals on a Friday afternoon, targeting companies I knew were frustrated with their current providers. The responses would determine whether I'd just committed professional suicide or started something real. Waiting for replies felt like drowning in slow motion. 2 people believed in Harbor Point before it existed as anything more than desperate hope. Felicity worked in analytics at Harlow Dynamics. We'd collaborated on projects where she'd watch Gregory take credit for our joint work with increasing disgust. When I told her I was leaving, her response was immediate. "I'm coming with you." "Felicity, I can't pay you." "Not yet. Maybe not for months." She shrugged. Gregory just hired his nephew for the position I'd been promised. I'm done being overlooked. Warren joined next. He'd managed human resources at Harlow Dynamics for 4 years, watching Gregory's ego destroy promising employees. He quit via email on a Monday morning and appeared at my tiny office by Tuesday. "I've got 6 months of savings," he said simply. "Let's build something that doesn't make me hate myself." We set up in a converted office above a bakery. The stairs creaked, the heating barely worked, and our furniture came from thrift stores and generous friends. We shared one laptop, and a determination born from being underestimated too long. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't comfortable, but it was ours. Every morning, the smell of fresh bread drifted up from below, mixing with our cheap coffee and cheaper optimism. We worked 16-hour days, sustained by anger, ambition, and the terrifying freedom of having nothing left to lose. The first 3 months nearly broke us. No clients responded. Our savings dwindled. We ate ramen and questioned everything. Late nights blurred into early mornings, fueled by desperation and stubbornness. Felicity cried once, quietly, thinking I wouldn't notice. Warren stopped mentioning his concerned family. I woke most nights at 3 in the morning, panic squeezing my chest, wondering if Gregory had been right about me. Too ordinary, not leadership material. Steady but not special. The words haunted my darkest hours. We'd sent 47 proposals, received 3 polite rejections and 44 silences. Our website analytics showed visitors but no conversions. The office felt less like a launch pad and more like a waiting room before inevitable failure. Maybe we should pivot, Felicity suggested carefully during one particularly grim afternoon. Target smaller companies? Adjust our pricing. Or maybe I'm exactly what Gregory said, I whispered. Ordinary, good at executing other people's visions, but incapable of creating my own. Warren looked up sharply. That's his voice, not yours. Stop giving him space in your head. But some voices burrow deeper than logic can reach. Then, on a Wednesday that felt like every other Wednesday, my phone rang. The call came from Desmond Patterson, CEO of Patterson Freight, a mid-sized logistics company I'd cold contacted 6 weeks earlier. Miss Callahan, I need to talk about your proposal. My heart hammered. Of course. I'm available whenever works for you. How about now? I've got a crisis that sounds exactly like what you described in your email. Desmond explained his situation rapidly. Patterson Freight had hired Harlow Dynamics to optimize their warehouse operations. The project had run 4 months over schedule, costs had tripled, and Gregory's team had become impossible to reach when problems arose. They treated us like we should feel grateful they took our money, Desmond said, frustration bleeding through his professional tone. Your proposal mentioned ethical partnership. I need to know if that's marketing language or actual philosophy. It's who we are, I replied, because I watched a company destroy relationships through arrogance, and I won't build that way. Silence. Then, can you start Monday? We worked 78 hours straight that first week. Felicity rebuilt their entire inventory tracking system, while Warren restructured their staffing schedules. I coordinated everything, operating on caffeine and vindication. When Desmond shook my hand afterward, genuine relief in his eyes, he said something that made my throat tight. I wish we'd found you first. Word spread fast in business communities. 6 months after launching Harbor Point, I opened LinkedIn one Monday morning and froze. Gregory Harlow viewed your profile. No message. No connection request. Just that quiet notification. A digital ghost reminding me he existed. That he noticed. Good. Let him watch. Our client list had grown to 7 companies, most of them former Harlow Dynamics customers who'd grown tired of broken promises and inflated invoices. We weren't wealthy yet, but we were paying ourselves modest salaries and reinvesting everything else. I'd hired 3 more consultants, each one someone dismissed or overlooked by traditional firms. Former stay-at-home mothers transitioning back to careers. Mid-career professionals tired of corporate politics. People Gregory would have called ordinary. They were extraordinary. Felicity had developed a proprietary analytics platform that clients loved. Warren's HR frameworks were being adopted by companies beyond our direct contracts. We were building something real, and Gregory was watching. I imagined him in his corner office, scrolling through our growing success, trying to understand how his steady former employee was becoming his competitor. The thought brought dark satisfaction, but I refused to contact him. Wouldn't give him the satisfaction of acknowledgement. This wasn't about him anymore. It had become about proving something to myself. By our first anniversary, Harbor Point had 16 clients and 8 employees. We'd moved into a proper office space with functioning heat and furniture that didn't wobble. Revenue wasn't spectacular, but it was steady. growing, sustainable. Our reputation spread through referrals and honest work. Companies appreciated transparency after dealing with firms like Harlow Dynamics. They paid on time, referred friends, and trusted us with increasingly complex problems. Meanwhile, Gregory's company started losing contracts. I heard through industry contacts. A major retail client had switched to a competitor after a botched warehouse renovation. A manufacturer had sued over project delays. Board members were reportedly questioning Gregory's leadership. Each piece of news felt like reclaiming stolen pieces of myself, but I told nobody about the satisfaction those updates brought. Revenge only works when it looks like natural consequences. Have you seen the industry newsletter? Warren asked one morning, sliding his laptop toward me. The headline read, Harlow Dynamics faces restructuring amid client losses. Gregory's photograph accompanied the article. He looked older, tired. The artificial confidence that once commanded rooms had cracked around the edges. I closed the laptop without commenting. Some victories speak for themselves. The showdown came unexpectedly during a conference in Portland. Tech Ventures Incorporated had announced an open bidding process for a massive logistics optimization project. The contract was worth $2 million over 3 years. Transformative money for a company our size. 2 finalists emerged, Harlow Dynamics and HarborPoint Consulting. I saw Gregory across the hotel lobby when we arrived for final presentations. He stood with 3 executives, expensive suit perfectly tailored, projecting the authority he'd always wielded so effectively. Then he noticed me. His expression shifted through surprise, calculation, and something that might have been concern. He excused himself from his group and walked over, that familiar smile returning. Renee, still playing in operations, I see. The dismissiveness was automatic, reflexive. I smiled back, matching his tone. Still taking credit for other people's work, Gregory? His smile faltered slightly. Good luck in there, I continued, gathering my materials. You'll need it. We presented 2 hours apart. Gregory went first, deploying his usual charisma and broad promises. I went second, focusing on specific solutions and transparent pricing. 3 days later, Tech Ventures called me directly. HarborPoint won the contract, Ms. Callahan. Your presentation was exactly what we needed. Honest, practical, refreshing. I thanked them professionally, disconnected, and allowed myself one moment of pure, unfiltered triumph. Then I got back to work. After Tech Ventures, everything accelerated. The contract validated HarborPoint's approach. Investors who dismissed us months earlier started returning calls. Industry publications requested interviews. Clients lined up, attracted by our growing reputation for delivering results without corporate games. We hired 15 more employees within 6 months, opened satellite offices in Denver and Austin, developed proprietary software that gave us competitive advantages Gregory couldn't match. Meanwhile, Harlow Dynamics stumbled, more contracts lost, key employees departing, board meetings turning contentious. Industry gossip grew increasingly specific about internal chaos and Gregory's eroding authority. Every rumor felt like karma finding its address. Felicity forwarded me a business article one morning. Former star company struggles as competitors rise. Gregory's photograph showed him at some industry event, smile strained, surrounded by younger executives I didn't recognize. The caption mentioned leadership transitions and strategic reassessment. Do you feel bad? Warren asked, noticing my expression. I considered the question honestly. I feel vindicated. That's different from satisfaction. But you're winning. No, I corrected. We're building something good. His company's failing because he never valued people over ego. Those are separate facts that happen to intersect. Warren grinned. That's very mature of you. I'm lying through my teeth. It feels amazing. We both laughed, and the laughter felt like finally breathing properly. 18 months after leaving Harlow Dynamics, I received an email that made time stop. Subject: conversation request from Gregory Harlow. Renee, I think we should talk. Privately. There's an opportunity that could benefit both our companies. Are you available this week? Gregory. I stared at the message for 10 minutes. analyzing every word for hidden manipulation. Then I responded simply, Thursday, 2 p.m., my office. He arrived exactly on time, parking his Tesla in our visitor spot. I watched from my window as he studied our building, perhaps comparing it to the converted bakery space where we'd started. When he entered my office, his expression cycled through emotions too quickly to read. Surprise at our success, discomfort at needing something from me, that old confidence struggling against new reality. Your company's impressive, he said, sitting uninvited. I underestimated your potential. You underestimated basic human decency, I corrected. Building a company on respect isn't potential, Gregory. It's just not being terrible. He flinched slightly. Progress. I'll be direct, he continued. Harlow Dynamics is facing challenges. We need strategic partnership with a growing firm. Your company fits perfectly. Why would I partner with you? Because together we dominate the industry. I opened my laptop and turned it toward him. On the screen was a purchase agreement. Detailed, legal, final. Gregory's eyes scanned the document, confusion growing into comprehension into shock. His face drained of color as implications crystallized. Your board already approved this, I said quietly. Harbor Point is acquiring Harlow Dynamics. We close in 30 days. You're buying my company? His voice cracked slightly on the last word. Yes, the ordinary one. Silence filled my office, heavy with 7 years of dismissed contributions and stolen credit and casual cruelty. This is revenge, Gregory finally said. No, this is business. Your company's failing because you prioritized ego over ethics. Mine's succeeding because we did the opposite. Your board recognized that reality before you did. He stared at the contract, hands trembling slightly. The man who'd called me too ordinary to lead now faced being acquired by the very person he'd dismissed. I made mistakes, he admitted, voice barely audible. You made choices. Choices have consequences. I stood, signaling the conversation's end. You'll receive official notification tomorrow. I wanted you to hear it from me first. As Gregory walked out, shoulders slumped under weight he'd spent years avoiding, I felt something unexpected. Not triumph, not even satisfaction, just quiet certainty that I'd proved everything that needed proving. Gregory tried fighting the acquisition, of course, hired expensive lawyers, accused the board of breach of duty, threatened litigation that would destroy everyone. But arrogance doesn't survive transparency. His board had documented everything. Years of declining performance, client complaints he'd dismissed, employee turnover he'd ignored, strategic mistakes that prioritized his ego over company health. Meanwhile, Harbor Point's trajectory spoke for itself. Consistent growth, loyal clients, respected reputation. We represented everything Harlow Dynamics could have been if leadership had valued substance over showmanship. The board sided with reality. Within 3 months, Gregory was removed from the company bearing his name. No office, no title, no authority, just a severance package and non-disclosure agreement ensuring his silence. We scheduled transition meetings in his former conference room, the same space where he'd called me ordinary, where he'd dismissed 7 years of loyalty with casual cruelty. Gregory arrived late to the first meeting, perhaps hoping to salvage some dignity through defiance. He sat in the same chair where I'd once presented ideas he would steal, and avoided eye contact while Felicity outlined integration timelines. When she finished, Gregory finally looked at me directly. Did you plan this from the beginning? No, I answered honestly. I planned to survive your dismissal. Building something better was just inevitable. Transforming Harlow Dynamics took months of careful work. We interviewed every employee, learning which ones had been demoralized by Gregory's leadership and which had enabled his worst instincts. Half stayed, grateful for a second chance. Half left, unable to adapt to a culture that valued collaboration over politics. The physical changes came quickly. We removed hierarchical office structures, implemented transparent salary bands, and established mentorship programs for junior staff. The place transformed from a monument to one man's ego into an actual functioning workplace. Former clients who'd left started returning. We heard new leadership actually listens, one CEO explained. That's worth trying again. Revenue stabilized. Employee satisfaction increased. The toxicity Gregory had normalized began dissipating like poison finally exposed to sunlight. Walking through the office 6 months after acquisition, I barely recognized it. People laughed in hallways. Meetings happened without fear. Junior employees pitched ideas without expecting dismissal. The transformation felt like healing. One afternoon, I stood in what had been Gregory's corner office. We'd converted it into a collaborative workspace with comfortable chairs and whiteboards. No mahogany desk. No ego shrine. Just space for people to actually work together. Sunlight streamed through windows that once felt harsh. Now everything looked softer. Revenge, I realized, doesn't roar. It exhales. Stories about the acquisition spread through business communities, taking on mythical proportions. Some versions painted me as a vengeful genius who'd planned everything. Others suggested Gregory had been sabotaged by his own arrogance. Both versions contained truth, I supposed. Industry publications requested interviews. Business schools invited me to speak. Other ordinary professionals reached out, sharing their own stories of being dismissed by short-sighted leaders. Their messages mattered more than any article or acquisition. Your story gave me courage to leave a toxic job, one woman wrote. I'm starting my own firm next month. Another, I've been called not executive material for 5 years. Watching you succeed reminded me that assessment says more about them than me. Reading these messages in my office, I understood something fundamental. This wasn't just about proving Gregory wrong or building a successful company. It was about changing the narrative around what leadership looked like, who deserved opportunities, whose contributions counted. Ordinary people, steady, reliable people who did excellent work without needing constant validation. Those people built empires too. They just built them differently, more sustainably, more ethically. And sometimes, just sometimes, those empires bought the companies that had dismissed them. For months after the acquisition finalized, a handwritten letter arrived at my office. Expensive stationery, careful script, no return address necessary. Gregory's handwriting. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won. Renee, it began. I've spent these months trying to understand where I went wrong. The easy answer is everywhere. The honest answer is that I stopped seeing people as people and started seeing them as resources. You were the most valuable resource I had, and I treated you like a tool instead of a partner. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I finally understand. You weren't too ordinary. I was too blind. I'd like to talk, if you're willing. Gregory. I read the letter 3 times, analyzing sincerity against practiced manipulation. He'd always been skilled at saying exactly what people needed to hear. But this felt different. Smaller. Less calculated. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in my desk drawer between old business cards and forgotten paperwork. Some conversations didn't need to happen. Some apologies arrived too late to change anything. Gregory had taught me everything about what not to do. That lesson was complete. The letter could stay in the drawer. A ghost of mistakes acknowledged, but not requiring my absolution. I had better things to do than grant him closure. 1 year after acquiring Harlow Dynamics, a business magazine published a feature story about transformational leadership. The cover photograph showed me standing in our main office, surrounded by employees who'd helped build something genuinely good. The headline read, "The woman who bought her boss's company and made it better." During the interview, the journalist asked the question everyone wanted answered. How does it feel, acquiring the company that dismissed you? I'd prepared several professional responses, statements about growth and learning and moving forward without bitterness. But what I said surprised even me. It feels like remembering my worth. For 7 years, someone convinced me that being steady and reliable somehow made me ordinary. That leadership required charisma instead of competence. That vision mattered more than execution. He was wrong about all of it. So it doesn't feel like revenge. It feels like justice. The article went viral within hours. People shared it across professional networks with comments like, "This is for everyone who's been called not leadership material," and sometimes ordinary people just need to stop accepting other people's definitions. My phone exploded with messages, interview requests, speaking invitations. companies wanting to hire Harbor Point specifically because of our story. But the messages I treasured most came from people like Warren and Felicity, from employees who'd risked security to build something ethical, from clients who'd chosen partnership over exploitation. Those were the people who mattered. Not Gregory, not his belated recognition, just the community we'd built from dismissed potential and quiet competence. Now, when people call me ordinary, I smile. Because ordinary built an empire while extraordinary collapsed under ego's weight. Ordinary learned patience while brilliance demanded immediate validation. Ordinary remembered that people matter more than profit margins. And ordinary burned quietly until the day it became fire. Gregory once said I lack spark. That steady people don't inspire change. That leadership requires presence he claimed I couldn't project. He just never realized he was standing next to the match. Some victories announce themselves with fanfare. Others accumulate through consistent choices and ethical foundations. Mine was the second kind. Built slowly, earned honestly, sustained by valuing people instead of using them. The former Harlow dynamics thrives now under new values. Employees who once dreaded Monday mornings now arrive energized. Clients who once felt exploited now feel partnered. The culture transformation continues daily, proving that leadership isn't about commanding rooms. It's about building spaces where everyone can contribute their best work. I still work long hours, still solve crises, still coordinate details most executives never see. But now I do it in a company that values precisely what Gregory dismissed. Steadiness, reliability, competence without ego, ordinary qualities that built something extraordinary. And somewhere, perhaps in a smaller office with diminished influence, Gregory finally understands what he lost when he called his secret weapon too ordinary to lead. The woman who proved him catastrophically wrong.